Hi, I'm Sonali Dev, and welcome to Lit with Love, where we bring you fabulous romance authors. This is Author's Voice on the Author's Voice Network at authorsvoice.net. I messed this up again. I do this every week. It can be our tradition now, but welcome. And you can ask questions live. There's a little submit question button beneath the screen. And you can also, and you should please also buy the book that Julie will sign for you. So welcome. And our guest today is the fabulous Julie Ann Walker.
Thank you.
Who writes these great romantic suspense books. She writes 2 series,
right.
And her latest book, Fuel for Fire, is the 10th book in the Black
Knights Incorporated, yes.
series. And what I personally absolutely love about your book,
tell me more, yes.
Julie, is the banter.
Okay.
These books are hilarious, not in they're romantic suspense. So people are dying and stuff is happening and chases are happening.
Right.
So not ha-ha hilarious, but the words that fly out of these people's mouths are just crazy. And I had to start this with this one line. This is the kind of stuff that these books are filled with. Okay, so here she says, "You realize if I wanted to commit suicide, all I'd have to do is climb your ego and jump down to that place where you keep your humility." And
the heroine is spunky.
Yeah, I'm spunky. I don't come up with stuff like that. So the other one is, she says to him, "You're so full of manure that if you laid in the dirt, you'd start growing little versions of yourself."
Like I said, she's spunky.
Yeah, this is all that.
She was a fun character to write, yes.
So I love to start always with you telling us what to you this book is about.
Well, since it's a book in a series, it's a romantic suspense series, so there is a series arc, which is that we say that the Black Knights are grease monkey motorcycle mechanics by day and Uncle Sam's last resort by night. So that's kind of the hook to get readers involved. But basically they are a group of clandestine special operations warriors who are sent in to do the jobs that either fly in the face of the rules of engagement or are too sort of outside the bounds for traditional forces. And so I'm getting towards the end of the series, and there is a series arc where it's the big bad, is what I call it. It's the bad guy who has kind of been in the shadows the entire time, and they're finally starting to figure out who he is, or they're trying to in these books figure out who he is in order so that they can take him down. So that's sort of the series arc. And that encompasses the suspense arc for this book. The romance element of this book is a relationship that's been brewing for quite a while. The hero and heroine were both CIA agents at one point. She was an analyst, he was a field agent, and so she's the brainy one, he's all the brawn in the relationship. He's pretty brooding and like Sonali read, she's very mouthy and she's quick-witted, and so there are lots of verbal sparring between the two of them. She had a dark secret, I'm not going to give the book away, that involved the reason why Dagan, who is the hero, was fired from the FBI, which she's kind of been holding in all these years. And so it's a frenemies to lovers story, because they were friends, they were working on the same side, but they were kind of enemies. So frenemies to lovers story, but also a story about forgiveness, I say in the beginning of the book, because she actually does make a mistake. I think she's very human, and she holds on to something that she probably shouldn't have held on to in terms of the secret that sort of kind of ruined his life. And I say in the dedication to the book, to anyone who has ever been hurt by someone they love, remember there's no weakness in forgiveness. So it is a story, frenemies to lovers, but it's a story ultimately about being able to forgive.
Yeah, and I love how you did that in the end.
Right.
It was very real. And one of the things that I miss in a lot of romance is real mistakes.
Right.
I think we all make consumable or we all like to write the more consumable mistakes that our protagonists
which are
make.
surface level mistakes that people don't actually go, oh God,
Yeah.
she really shouldn't have done that type of thing.
Yeah. So this is a real mistake, people.
Right.
So I feel bad for him, but it that was, and I think it was sorted really well.
Right.
That whole,
That is I can tell you that the reader response that I've gotten back, there are some people who are a little bit like, I have heard, God, she should have just told him. She should have told him years ago. She shouldn't have held on to it. But she had reasons, valid reasons in her own mind, family reasons in her own mind for not speaking up. But yeah, she made a very human mistake. And it's difficult when you write romance because readers are they're harder on the heroine, don't you find? Like they kind of tend to forgive the hero of a lot, but the heroine they really hold to a higher standard. So I was very nervous about this book, putting her out there, making that very kind of mistake.
It's that whole alpha hole thing, right? That
Right.
if we're coming, and especially I think in romantic suspense with these big, brawny,
Right.
take a bullet for you kind
Right.
of guys,
Right.
where the fantasy is that that these are flawed yet strong
Right.
characters,
Right.
right? So I think in that you're right. In this book for me specifically, her I think the way that you wrote it is yes. We want to judge her, but really I was like, oh, come on, really?
Right.
Like you don't think you would have done the same thing? Like
Right.
you have a hard time with this?
Right.
So I found myself being impatient with
the
him.
hero.
Yeah.
You're the first person
Yeah.
who said that, and thank you, because when I was writing it, I was getting impatient with him. I thought, enough already,
Yeah,
forgive
yeah,
her.
Yeah, and I mean impatient in a good sense. Where I
Yeah.
was like, you, and I think for the same reasons, right? You want a free pass, but
Right.
why, why does she not get? It's
Right.
not even a free pass. I mean, she's kicking herself over
Right.
it, and he's the one who keeps stopping her from,
Right.
So
Right.
it's yeah, and I think that might be turning. So it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good mistake.
Right. Well, like I said, I was really nervous about putting that heroine out there because I thought, oh gosh, I don't know how readers are going to take her. But they tended to. I mean, I did get some like, I wish she would have told him earlier. But other than that, they were like, we love their story. So I feel pretty good about it. But it was a terrifying thing to put it out there.
Is this the first time in all of the books?
I have tended to write heroes that tend to screw up.
Yeah.
Because we tend to forgive them easier, and my heroines have generally been the type of gal you want to be, type of thing. They haven't done any.
Chelsea is that
right,
too.
she is.
Yeah.
But they really, I haven't written a woman who has made sort of I'm not even going to call it a mistake, but a judgment call that was very hurtful to the hero. And this is the first time I've done that, so that's why I was nervous about it.
Kudos to you.
Yeah.
No, I think you pulled it off.
Okay, good.
Well, so I do want to talk about Chelsea because so much about her was interesting, including the very unsexy bra and the real woman problems. But we can come back to that and her background and the fact that you wrote this diverse heroine in a time when everybody's asking about, how do you write diverse protagonists. So we can come back talk about that because I do want to talk about the research, and I know we've been getting questions, and also please continue to ask questions as we go through the interview. You get only half hour, so chop chop. But we have some questions, and a lot of those questions were focused on the research because that was also on my list. In fact, a lot of the questions that we got early made my job easy.
Okay, good.
So I wanted to. There was from Pamela Knight. Hi, Pamela. And she wants to know, how did you go about researching your series? Since there's motorcycle clubs and government agencies, did you interview someone with experience in these types of organizations and so forth? But for me also personally, I wanted to, there's always locations and things like that. And I know you're an avid traveler.
Yes.
So both those things together, let's.
Okay. So for research for my books, I kind of tend to draw from the headlines. I like to read between the headlines and see if there's, what would be the fictional underlying story. And then I love research, probably to my detriment, because I find myself getting online or reading books, and then I go down the rabbit hole, and I come up dehydrated and hungry 3 days later, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain is filled with all of this, FBI procedure or CIA procedure or, the cases that they've had over the years. And then I have too much information. But yeah, I love my research, and most of it is done online. I do go to, because some of my male characters are Navy SEALs. There is a friend of mine whose husband was a Navy SEAL. Well, he was part of the Navy SEAL group. He actually, I don't know how much I'm supposed to say. I'll just leave it at that. And so when I do have questions about how they go about their missions and that kind of things, I can bounce some questions off him. But for the most part, there's a lot of books out there, wonderful books about the Navy SEALs and the FBI and the CIA, and how timely that is. Maybe they're not giving us the cutting edge things that they're doing now, but I don't think it really matters in the romantic suspense as long as you just give it that element of authenticity, that you show that you have done your research in order to get it right. I think that it works just fine. And so that's my research. And as far as settings, I do love to travel. And there's this little thing called taxes. And and when you travel somewhere as an author and you actually you use that setting or location in your books, you can write it off as an expense. Yes, it is good to know. You can write it off as an expense. It's a totally legitimate and legal expense. So anytime I have an idea about where I want to set a book, I usually, spend some time there. I set my Deep Six series, which is a different series from what we're talking about now, in the Florida Keys, and so I moved down to Key West for 2 months. I was fortunate enough to do that and lived there. This book is set in England, and I did a 2-week driving tour with my mother all around England. Got to see almost the entire island, which was fantastic. Yeah, and then there's also times that we've been on vacation, my husband and I have been on vacation, and then a location has sparked, and I'm like, ooh, this would be fantastic to set a story. So it's kind of both. Sometimes I vacation in order to do the research for the book, and sometimes I'm vacationing and the research for the book suddenly comes
up.
Oh,
yeah. And there's parts with the Pier in Flagstaff? No, what is the, where are they hiding out? Oh. The little town, the small town. It's like
Folkestone.
Folkestone.
Yes.
Thank you. Flagstaff. Now, Folkestone, which is a small, tiny, unheard, small
unheard
town,
of. Yes. Most
UK.
people hear of Dover because of the Dover Cliffs,
Yes.
but it's a little south of there. So they hide out in this little town. And the reason I used it is because there's the Folkestone Harbor Arm, which is there, which kind of plays a part in the book. And I took some liberty with that because it really is a very bustling place now. There's tons of restaurants on it, and I kind of set it as sort of deserted at that time of the year. And I don't think in March probably it is deserted. I'm pretty sure that there are still people out there dining and stuff. So I did take some liberty with it, but yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. Okay. I was supposed to do that with a little more finesse, but okay, because that was going to be my question. That is it because it almost feels like you're under that pier, when they're all jumping into the water. So that was it was very authentic feeling.
So the physical presence of the pier is very much the same. It's just that what's on top of the pier now, they've rehabbed it, and it's restaurants and all sorts of fun stuff up there. So.
Right, that's awesome. And also, I don't, this is a personal conversation we had a few years ago, but because we both love to travel, and then you had that whole 100 countries thing.
Yes.
And I think that every time I'm reading your books, that kind of comes in.
Yeah. So she's talking about the fact that my husband and I have one item on our bucket list, and that's to visit 100 countries before we die. And so between work for the two of us and whatever our budget will allow, we try to vacation. And I think last time I talked to you, I was at 46, and now I'm at 56 countries. So still a ways to go. It's a labor of love. Emphasis on the love, because I do love to travel.
It's a hard job.
It's so hard. Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. And I'm right there with you. My bucket list is all that.
Well, you are well-traveled, too. You've been all over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're up to in the 20s, not quite in the 50s. But we'll have to count after it's done.
You might be surprised.
I might. Yeah. And I think it's such fabulous fodder for stories, right?
Because of course.
We were in Brazil in Rio, and I mean, talk about a place where you could set everything. Right?
Yes.
It's just so that's fabulous. Now, another thing that I think that you do really interestingly, really well is villains, which is the heart, the spine
Right.
of a good romantic suspense. And especially with Surrey, is that how you say his name?
Right. Yeah.
It,
Didn't you feel sorry for him by the end of the book when he died?
I mean, I thought you were going to. I thought he was going to be redeemed, be absorbed into the Black Knights,
Right.
and he was going to be a hero.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I mean, because he's a villain who's not a villain.
Right.
So.
And then we don't want to. I'll give that part of the book away. He dies at the end. I actually cried writing my villain's death, if that gives you any indication of what this book is like, because he was sucked into a terrible situation. He was between a rock and a hard place, and he, like you said, was a villain who wasn't a villain. And in order for the hero to save the heroine's life, he does kill Surrey, and he dies a tragic death.
He dies a tragic death, and he's so heroic in his villainy,
Right.
so to speak, because I think to the end, while he has this moral compass and he knows what he's doing is wrong,
Right.
he does take care of what he has to take care of
Right.
for the bad guy,
Right,
which was,
right.
I think,
Yeah,
just
just to
great.
give you an idea, he's
Yeah.
doing it all for his mother. So how can you?
But
how
the
can
job
you,
he signed up for, he
Right,
does.
right,
Like there's the
exactly.
thing about what is your duty, and he does his duty
Right.
that he's being paid for, and
Right.
there's something
Yeah,
very nice about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, he is a heroic villain. I did cry when he died. I thought, oh, it's terrible. Like he could have been redeemed, but not. No,
I don't
no.
think I've ever heard an author say she cried when she.
Well, and some of my villains are very sort of two-dimensional. They are horrific people, Yeah, exactly. The tweaking a little mustache. There's nothing redeemable about him. But that's why I like this book and this villain, and in the next book that's coming out in October, the villains are actually redeemable guys too, and they don't make it either. So maybe I'm starting a trend.
Yeah. No, I mean, we enjoy both,
Right,
So there's
right,
the,
right.
but that's so. I'm going to get to reader questions, and some of the
Okay.
reader questions are in here. But a hero with a beard. I was just like, that was fabulous, and I kept trying to kind of.
And I wanted it because I wanted a beard on my cover. I'm like, please give me a beard. And
I
they
think they
did.
did.
And they did. They came back with the beard. I was like, yes, okay.
Yeah. And one of the questions that we did have was because I kept thinking. I never thought I'd be a beard girl, but I think that with everybody
Yes.
growing that, like when Chris Pine
Yes.
starts growing a beard, how can you not be a beard
Exactly.
girl, right?
That's
Yeah.
true. Exactly.
So we did have a question from Megan. Hi, Megan Deneen. And she wants to know, do you picture any certain actors or public figures for the BKI boys and girls?
My heroes and heroines are always sort of usually a mishmash. I kind of have them pictured in my head, and then I'll go online and I'll sort of find actors or models or something that has one feature, and so I do sort of a collage of what the character is, like these eyes, and I'll print out a picture of what the eyes look like, this hair, this smile, this chin dimple, this beard. And so it's never one person, but it's sort of bits and pieces of a bunch of different people that make up my character. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm somewhat like that too. And so who was?
Oh, for
Dagan?
I couldn't even tell you like what the bits and pieces were because they were up there for months and they were just bits and pieces, and so I can't. I don't even know.
So I can just make him the face of
whatever,
of Chris
whatever
Pine
you want
and the
him to
body of Jason Momoa. Okay.
Yes. I actually like this fantasy too. Maybe I'll switch it up in my own head. Yes. Yeah.
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 Yeah. See. All right. Now the other thing that is, I think it might not be completely out there with romantic suspense, but this book takes place basically over the span of one day.
Right.
Right? Now, there's this really complicated story, all this backstory, all of that happening over one day. So I want to know what your process is. And we do have, a lot of reader questions, viewer questions about that. So process-wise, when you're juggling that, structurally, what do you start with? How does it go?
So I always start, it's funny, I write romantic suspense, and a lot of romantic suspense writers really focus on the suspense, or that's the difficult part for them, is the suspense arc. And for me, the suspense arc comes very easily. Like I know who the villain is, and I know what his motivation is going to be, and I know what the end, what they're working towards, the goal that the protagonists are going to be working towards. So the suspense arc is very easy for me. What's difficult for me is the relationship. I really need to know my two protagonists, my hero and heroine, and I have what I call character Bibles on my characters that are pages long. I know where they were born. I know, their elementary nemesis, the girl who used to pull her pigtails on the playground and stuff. And even if that doesn't end up in the book, I have to do that for myself in order to really understand the characters and where they're coming from. And so for me, that's where I start on the romance arc. Who are these two people? What's going to stop them from being together? And ultimately, how can they get together at the end? And one thing I don't do in my books and why they can happen in a day is that my hero and heroine always know each other and have known each other for a long period of time, and it's been brewing, this relationship between them. And so by the time we meet up with them in their book, it's sort of at the tipping point. And so it can happen in that day is when, everything comes to a head for them. Almost all of my books are a day or two long.
No, right.
Yes.
Right. And so then, does that mean that the next one is Emily's book?
Emily and Christian's
book?
And it happens in a day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Because most of this is almost like they're the romantic subplot
Right.
in it. And,
Right.
And
Yeah,
they're great,
so-
so I cannot
yeah,
wait.
so
When does that
she's-
come out?
It comes out in October.
Okay.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So then you'll come back and talk about it
Absolutely.
with us. All right. Everybody, it seems, wants to know when Angel's book is coming. Now, I have a theory, but
Okay.
tell me.
His book is coming July of 2018.
Is he the closer?
He is the closer.
Okay. And
Yes.
And we do have a reader, and I will thank the reader, but I'll let you start with the answer.
Okay.
Who wants to know, why are you stopping?
I'm running out of characters. And I will tell this reader, whoever she is that you are a chorus at this point, because my agent and my editor are both trying to convince me that there is absolutely no reason we should stop this delicious series. And I will give you this little kernel that in book 12, which is Angel's book, it's called Built to Last, and like I said, it's coming out July of 2018. I will leave the door cracked open. So I can come back if I ever want to. The truth of the answer is that I sort of need a break. I think you as an author, you understand that 12 books is a very long time to be with characters and in a world. Mm-hmm. And I sort of feel like at this point I have explored everything and there's nothing new for me. And the spice for an author is the new. Or at least it is for me. That's the exciting part for me, to explore the new things. And I feel like I've explored it all at this point. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't get a hankering for it again and feel like there's a twist coming up that I can, there's more I can do. Hopefully that will happen. But for right now, I'm taking a break from BKI. Yeah.
All right. Boo-hoo. And my boo-hoo is echoed here. So along those lines, there's a reader who wants to know where all those ideas come from, because that's a lot of books, and where do the ideas come from?
Whip them straight out of the air. No, so
of course you do.
Yeah, I really do. Like I just go back and I say I really kind of steal from the headlines, because it is romantic suspense and it is intrigue that's going on in the world. It's very easy to just read the news, and because I'm a writer, I always ask the what if, or what's really happening that they're not reporting on that we don't know about. And so that's really where I get my ideas, is things that have happened in the news. Yeah.
Between the headlines,
yes, exactly.
What you said. Yeah. And then Heather, hi Heather, wants to know, which book would you say was the most difficult to write so far?
Gosh.
And does one particular one stand out as a favorite?
So I will tell you, the most difficult book to write for me was the book that came out in April, which was Ozzy's book. It's called Wild Ride, and it was the most difficult for me because he was the most beloved character in the series. And so I felt a lot of pressure on myself. I put it on myself. I think readers probably would have been happy, with whatever, but I felt like I really had to do him justice because he was such a reader favorite, and so I there was a lot of angst involved with writing his story, and did I do him justice, and did I give him the right heroine, and did I give his backstory correctly, because until then he had kind of been a two-dimensional character. The readers hadn't really gotten to know the underlying Ozzy, so that was definitely probably the most difficult book for me to write.
And the person who had asked the question about Angel's book was Ruth Chris. Okay. So thank you, Ruth. And all right, let me see that we have 5 minutes to go and a lot of questions. But before I went ask those, I wanted to go back to Chelsea for a bit and ask you where she came from, and was it different? And we might as well go here because everybody is always asking,
right?
How do you? Which I for the record, please stop asking how to write diverse characters because it's no different. But having said that, as somebody who has done, written Chelsea. What did you think, and did you have to do anything specific?
I didn't. So she's sort of touching on the fact that Chelsea is a black woman, and I didn't like the fact that Dagan, the hero, is Caucasian and Chelsea is African American. Didn't really make any sort of difference in the book. I tried to treat their relationship or their skin color as if the same way I would treat their eye color. I described it so the readers knew who they were, reading about. But otherwise, I tried really not to make that a key element of the book because, and my editor did, or I can't remember, somebody said something about an interracial relationship between the two of them, and I thought that always gets me. Like, I hate that race thing because we're just the human race. And so, I'm okay with multicultural. I kind of like that one because we come from different cultures, and so I sort of like that term. The interracial thing always makes me kind of go, kink, kink, It always kind of gives me a little, and maybe that's because I'm naive. I have no idea, but I tried to treat that relationship, and I hope that I did, like any relationship.
Right. And I have to again step back and say that yes, we're all the human race, but we all need to be represented. And so and I also think that you didn't just treat it like hair color. You did go into a little bit of their history where her parents had a hard time being an interracial couple, and you spoke to the fact that we are no longer in 1980, we're no longer in the 80s and the 70s, and and I think you did make that slight difference. So there was a deliberate it was not a focus of the story, but there was an acknowledgement of who she is and why she is
the struggle
who
that
she
she's
is.
come.
Yeah,
yes.
And not just struggle, but there's also this great joy in coming from that kind of family, and having that sort of mother, and so there's a joy in it. And I think you did do that.
Yeah, absolutely. As writers, I think we write the world we sort of want to live in, and so I did mention it with Chelsea's backstory. And sort of touch on the fact that she came from an interracial relationship. Her parents were interracial, and then I kind of, that happened, and it was a struggle for her parents initially in the 1980s, but then when it became her and Dagan, it didn't become an issue because hopefully we have progressed past that, where it's a non-issue at this point.
Or it should be, at least.
Or should be, yes. Like I said, we write the world we want to live in.
All right. Okay, going to quickly run through a couple questions. This is from Beth Carey. Hi, Beth, who was our guest 2 shows ago. So she wants to know, she's lovely. She wants to know, do you have a favorite romance novel trope? And if so, what is it?
I love friends to lovers. I like I said, all of my books, I really don't, there's no insta-love is what I call it. They don't meet and they're suddenly in love. They all have a deep backstory with each other. So the trope that really speaks to me the most, and maybe it's because my husband and I were friends to lovers, but I just love that trope in romantic suspense. To me, there's a foundation for the entire relationship if they were friends first. So it's my favorite.
Yeah, and world building really helps that.
Yes, it does.
You're perfectly set up for that. So that's fabulous. What comes next? Carolyn Spence wants to know. Hi, Carolyn.
So after I turn in the last Black Knights Incorporated book, I actually have a passion project that is coming up, which is a trilogy, and it has romance and it has suspense, but it is not romantic suspense. So we'll see how readers feel about that. But like I said, it's going to be 3 books. I don't exactly know what the publication schedule on that's going to be, and then I will probably jump back into romantic suspense and finish out the Deep Six series.
So this is single title?
It's a trilogy, yes, single title, and it follows the same protagonists through all 3 books.
Okay.
So it's a much larger story than My Black Knights Incorporated in terms of each title has a new protagonist, a new set of protagonists.
Do we get a peek into what it's about more than that? This is me pushing, journalistic pushing.
It's more family saga. I'll give you a couple little tidbits. It's a family saga. There is going to be a love triangle, which is usually a trope that I hate, but these characters are speaking to me and I can't get them to shut up, so there will be a love triangle. And it is set in New Orleans, which is delicious to me. So that's the city of New Orleans becomes a character in and of itself.
Is this your first one in New Orleans?
Yes.
And apparently we're not supposed to say it like that. Beverly Jenkins
Right.
has tried
Nolans.
several times to teach me how to say it. I just, Nolans, I don't know. It doesn't sound the same coming out of my mouth. All right. And you've talked to us about our ideas. Ruth Kaufman wanted to know where you get your ideas from, and the headlines. There's Misty Williamson. Hi, Misty, who wants to know, will we get novellas to see what past characters are up to, like Ghost and Allie?
Oh my goodness, I get this question all the time. So when I end the BKI series with book 12, which is coming out in 2018, there will be, for the first time, I'm going to do a prologue, which will catch the readership up on kind of where everybody is in their life. As far as novellas, and I do have a couple of ideas for novellas, but I'm wretched at writing novellas because I can't write a story in that few words. My novellas wind up being almost a book long when I've tried to write them before. So if I can become a better writer and actually be able to tell a story in 20 to 25,000 words, I definitely think that there's room for novellas coming up. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Although I love the 120,000 words too. Isn't it weird how
it's so bizarre.
20,000 is so much harder?
I know. Yes.
Yeah. One of the questions that I kind of and everybody here that I did not get to has said how much they love your books, and how they're huge fans.
Thank you so much.
So there's that. All right. Do you want to tell us about the Angel story and about Christian and Emily's story?
Sure. So Christian and Emily, who are coming out, their book is, gosh, you're gonna, this is author brain. Hot Pursuit, coming out in October. That's terrible, isn't it?
Titles. Talk to me about your titles, because I always have title envy with you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wish that I could take credit for my titles, but I'm the worst titler in the world. Yeah. And so my publishing house comes up with I always will I can tell you, when I probably the first 5 to 6 books I titled, and I thought that they were a fantastic title, and they were very diplomatic with me coming back and saying, maybe we should talk about this title. And then they played a horrific joke on me where they just sent me a bunch of really terrible titles. And I realized that they were really terrible titles about the 10th one in, and I was like, they're playing a joke on me. They think I'm a terrible titler, and I am a terrible titler. So I don't even usually title them anymore. I'm like, here's manuscript number 11. Title it whatever you want.
I'm a terrible titler too. So these are great titles, but go on, coming back to Christian and Emily.
So Christian and Emily coming out in October. I really love them. I'm a little nervous about his character because he's British, and so I had to work very diligently to get the Britishisms right, and we'll see if I did get them right. I have some British readers who will definitely tell me if I went overboard. Somebody wrote me, they called it a Dick Van Dykeism, where it's like too much Britishism. So, I probably put a lot in to begin with, and then I've dialed it back during the editorial process. So, yeah.
And do you make a list of all?
I do. I do. Like,
bloody hell.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Knackered and all the stuff. Yes.
That's my favorite. I'm like, they're snoggy. snogging.
Right.
These books are all snogging.
Yes, there is snogging in my books.
That
yes.
is awesome. What are you currently reading? And recommendations for other romantic suspense for people who enjoy your books.
So I've read a few books that I really like. I'll give you recommendations for romantic suspense and tell you what I'm currently reading. So currently I am reading, I wish I had my iPhone with me because I'm terrible at titles and I don't remember titles either. Let's go back to the book that I read recently that really made an impression on me, and that was called You, and it was written in second person. And I believe the author's name is Carolyn Kepnes. And it's really a bone-chilling novel because it's told from the viewpoint of a stalker talking about who he's stalking. And so he says things like, you were in the library today in your pink jeans and stuff. So that's how it's told in second person. And the funny thing about this book is that he talks about her in such a way that you actually kind of root for him. It's terrible. I mean, it's a thriller. It's an awful, awful book, but he is so in love with her, and he exonerates her so much in the way that you're kind of like, I kind of want him to get her. It's terrible. I mean, this book made an impression on me. So if you like thrillers and you just want to be like really have your skin crawl, You by Carolyn Kepnes.
Oh, okay. All right. I will give it. Okay, I won't even give it a try.
Yeah, but see, I love thrillers. I like things that make me super uncomfortable. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not me. I did want to say hi to Sylvia, who's watching us from the CTA. So hi, Sylvia. Thank you for doing this. She's one of our producers, right? So hi, Sylvia. And we have run out of time, I'm told.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
This was fabulous. And the next one comes out
October. Hot Pursuit.
Hot Pursuit.
Yeah.
And I am going to lead us out with upcoming shows. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And before I go, make sure you buy the book. Julie will be signing them. And make sure to join us again for these upcoming shows on Author's Voice, which, because I can remember nothing but maybe my name, I have to read off. So I beg your pardon. On July 25th, our show Stranger Than Fiction meets with Laura Tempest Zakroff to discuss her book, The Witch's Cauldron. On July 27th, Lady Bird and Friends returns with Betsy Bird's book, Funny Girl, hosted by Andrew Medler. On August 1st, Stranger Than Fiction returns again to speak to Chicago author Donna Urbicus about the exciting true story of Polish refugees, Soviet war camps, and a mother's love. On August 3rd, Solved returns with Marcus Seiki and his new thriller, Afterlife. Come back to authorsvoice.net for updates and details as we get closer to those dates. Thank you, Julianne Walker. And Lit with Love will be back next month with, oh my gosh, I know we're going to have Amy Rickard, and we're going to have Pintip Dunn, and I am completely having another brain fart, but if you go to authorsvoice.net,
you'll see who's coming
you'll
up.
see who's coming up in August. Thank you so much, and thank you, Julie.
Thank you.